by
The sun rose over the
starlight.
jagged
What is
mountains
that?
of Zithara, casting golden light across the bustling
I have never
village.
seen its like.
Nira, a young alien girl with green-tinted skin and sharp golden eyes, stood on a stone balcony overlooking the marketplace. Her small hands rested on the railing as she watched the villagers move about their daily routines. Merchants shouted about their wares, children ran between stalls, and farmers carried heavy baskets of fruits and vegetables. Nira smirked as she spotted a group of villagers gathering near the edge of the market. They were pointing and whispering, clearly excited about something new. Nira leaned closer to see what had captured their attention. A strange figure stood among them, tall and broad-shouldered, with pale skin and dark hair tied back neatly. His uniform was simple but sturdy, unlike the flowing robes most outsiders wore. He moved with a calm confidence that immediately drew attention. "That is the human they brought from the outer colonies." A young boy whispered near Nira. "I heard he is a warrior, but humans are so weak. They cannot even lift heavy stones without help." Nira laughed softly, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Humans were rare on Zithara, and she had always enjoyed teasing the ones who came to their village. She pushed herself off the balcony and walked down the stairs, eager to see the newcomer up close. By the time she reached the marketplace, the human warrior was standing calmly, observing the villagers. Some children had gathered around him, curious but cautious. Nira stepped forward, her head held high and a playful grin on her face. "Hello, human," she said, her voice light and teasing. "I am Nira. You must be tired from your long journey. Do you even know how to survive here?" The human turned his head and smiled politely. "I have survived many places before, Nira. I will try my best here as well," he replied. His voice was firm but gentle. Nira laughed, louder this time. "Many places, perhaps, but Zithara is different. The winds are harsh, the mountains are sharp, and even the smallest creatures can hurt you. You may be strong for a human, but that is not enough here." The villagers watched, some stifling laughter at Nira's boldness. Even the elders, who rarely commented on such matters, raised their eyebrows at her confidence. Nira had always been clever, but she had never met a human like this before. The human warrior bowed slightly. "I respect your world, Nira. I will learn, and I will adapt." Nira tilted her head. There was something in his calm manner that made her pause. Most creatures she had met would have reacted angrily to her mockery or tried to show off their strength. This human simply accepted her challenge with patience. Her mother, Illyra, appeared behind Nira, her presence quiet but commanding. Illyra had always been careful, watching over her daughter with a steady eye. She did not speak yet, but Nira felt her mother's gaze. It was warm, but serious, like a quiet warning she could not ignore. Nira waved her hand dismissively at her mother and returned her attention to the human warrior. "Very well then," she said. "If you are so confident, let us see if you can handle the tests of our village. Many outsiders fail the first week. You may wish to prepare yourself." The human nodded calmly. "I will try my best. Show me what you mean." Nira's grin widened. She led him to the edge of the village, where a narrow cliff overlooked a deep ravine. Large stones were placed. Along the edge, a simple training course for villagers to test agility and balance. Nira leaped onto the first stone, her movements fluid and precise. "Follow me if you can," she said. The human stepped forward without hesitation. Nira watched closely as he measured each step, carefully placing his feet with surprising accuracy. He moved differently from the villagers, slower in pace but steady in balance. When he reached the other side, Nira blinked in surprise. She had expected him to stumble or fall, but he had crossed the course with ease. "You are better than I expected," Nira said, her voice a mix of admiration and challenge. "Humans are usually clumsy. How did you do that?" "I pay attention," he said simply. "Strength alone is not enough. You must observe and plan your steps." Nira frowned slightly, realizing that he was not just strong but intelligent. Her mind raced with curiosity and a hint of frustration. She had never met anyone who could match her skills so calmly. Before she could respond, A commotion broke out near the village center. A small fire had started in one of the storage huts. Villagers rushed to contain it, but the wind was strong and the flames spread quickly. Nira felt a moment of panic. She had never handled a fire this large alone. Without thinking, she ran toward the chaos. The human warrior followed immediately, moving faster than she expected. Together they worked to put out the fire, passing buckets of water and guiding villagers to safety. Nira noticed how he did not take the lead aggressively. Instead, he supported, guided, and protected. The fire was extinguished after a tense half-hour, and the villagers cheered for both Nira and the human. Nira's cheeks burned, not from the heat of the fire, but from a strange mix of admiration and disbelief. She had mocked him, but he had proved his courage without showing off. Later, as the sun began to set, Nira and the human walked back to the village. She was quiet, her mind racing with thoughts she did not yet understand. Her mother approached them, her eyes softening as she looked at the human. Elira placed a hand on Nira's shoulder. "He is not like other outsiders, Nira. Watch carefully and learn. There is more to him than you can see." Nira looked at her mother, confused. "What do you mean? He is just a human. Humans are not from here. They cannot understand everything we know." Elira's gaze lingered on the human for a moment longer, and then she said, "Sometimes the greatest strength comes from the heart, not from the body. Do not judge him too quickly." Nira wanted to argue, but her mother's words left her thoughtful. She had never seen her mother speak with such emotion. A quiet curiosity began to grow inside her, mixed with the remnants of her playful mockery. That evening, Nira returned to her room, unable to sleep. She looked out of her window at the mountains, where the sky was painted with shades of orange and purple. The events of the day replayed in her mind: the calm strength of the human warrior, his careful movements, and the way he had helped during the fire. She realized that mocking him had been too easy, too predictable. There was something in him that she did not understand, something that made him different from anyone she had met. As the night deepened, Nira finally closed her eyes. Though her thoughts continued to race, she did not know what the future held, but she felt a strange excitement. The arrival of the human warrior had changed the rhythm of her life in ways she could not yet see. Little did she know that this was only the beginning. The human's presence would challenge not only her skills but her beliefs, and soon she would face choices that would test her courage, her loyalty, and her understanding of what it meant to be strong. For the first time, Nira wondered if strength alone was enough. She thought about her mother's words and realized that there were lessons she had yet to learn, and that the human warrior might teach her more than anyone else in the village ever could. As the stars appeared in the night sky over Zithra, Nira felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and she knew she would not face them alone. The human warrior was no longer just an outsider. He was a presence that demanded her attention, and for reasons she could not explain, she wanted to understand him fully. And somewhere in the quiet of the village, her mother watched from her window, a small smile on her lips, knowing that the arrival of this human would change everything for her daughter and for the world around them. The next morning, the village of Zithra woke to a crisp, golden light that made the mountains shine like molten stone. Birds with bright blue feathers sang from the treetops, and the scent of fresh herbs filled the air. Nira walked through the marketplace, her mind still occupied by the events of the previous day. The human warrior, Kalen, had helped during the fire without complaint, and she found herself thinking about him more than she wanted. The elders gathered the villagers near the central square. Their leader, a tall alien with silver hair named Velan, spoke in a voice that carried across the crowd. "A rare opportunity awaits," Velan said. "The Torn Rift has produced a new crystal, one that could benefit our village greatly. But the rift is dangerous. Many have tried to retrieve crystals before and failed. It is not a task for the weak or unprepared." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Nira felt her heart race with excitement. The Torn Rift was a place of legend, a deep chasm surrounded by jagged rocks, wild creatures, and unpredictable weather. Only the bravest or most foolish would attempt to enter. Nira stepped forward, her confidence shining. "I will go," she announced. Her voice was firm, and the villagers turned to look at her. She had grown up training on these cliffs and knew the terrain well. No human can match me in the rift. I will retrieve the crystal alone. Kalen, standing near the edge of the square, raised his hand politely. I will go as well. I want to help and learn from you. Nira laughed loudly, attracting more attention. Learn from me, she said. You may be brave, human, but this is Zithara. The rift does not forgive mistakes. You will slow me down or worse, get hurt. Valen stepped forward. It is your choice, Nira, but remember, the village may need all the help it can get. The rift does not discriminate. Nira frowned, her pride flaring. She wanted to prove herself, to show that a human could not match her skill. Very well, she said. If he insists, we will go together. But know this, human, I will not wait for you if you cannot keep up. Kalen nodded calmly. I understand. I will do my best. The two set off toward the torn rift, moving through the village gates and into the rocky terrain beyond. Nira led confidently, leaping from stone to stone, her movements precise and practiced. Kalen followed, watching her closely and stepping with care. Though his steps were slower, he never stumbled. As they traveled, the terrain grew steeper. Sharp cliffs rose on either side and jagged rocks jutted out from the path. Nira paused at one point, looking down at a narrow ledge over a deep drop. You must be careful here, she said, smirking. Many outsiders have fallen trying to cross this part. Kalen stepped onto the ledge without hesitation. His movements were deliberate, each foot carefully placed. When he reached the other side, Nira raised her eyebrow in surprise. You are lucky, she said. Or perhaps smarter than most humans. I observe, Kalen replied. Luck is not enough in the rift. Nira remained silent for a moment, her curiosity growing. This human was not only brave but cautious, thoughtful. She had never met someone who combined strength and intelligence so naturally. Hours passed as they climbed higher into the mountains. The wind grew colder, biting at their skin. Clouds swirled around the peaks and the sound of distant avalanches echoed through the valleys. Nira felt a shiver of excitement. The torn rift was testing them, and she could feel the danger growing closer with every step. Suddenly a screech echoed from above. A creature with wings wide and eyes glowing swooped down from the cliffside. Its sharp claws aimed for Nira, and she barely managed to leap aside. Watch out! Kalen shouted, diving to push her out of the way. His hands were strong, and he caught her just before she could fall. The creature shrieked and circled again, but Kalen remained calm. Nira's heart pounded in her chest. You saved me, she said, a mix of shock and gratitude in her voice. How did you know it would come this way? I paid attention to its shadow and movements, he explained. Predators often show their path before striking. You must watch and wait for the right moment. Nira shook her head, realizing how much she had underestimated him. She had mocked humans for their clumsiness, but this one had saved her life without hesitation. They continued on, moving carefully as more dangers emerged. Sharp rocks, unstable ground, and sudden gusts of wind challenged every step. Nira noticed that Kalen never rushed. He always assessed the situation, choosing safety and efficiency over speed. By midday, they reached a narrow canyon where the crystal was rumored to be hidden. The walls were high and smooth, and a rushing river ran through the bottom. Nira examined the path carefully. A single wrong step could send them plunging into the water below. I can jump across, Nira said, flexing her legs. Do you think you can, human? Kalen studied the gap for a moment. I can, but I will not risk a fall. We will find a safe path together. Nira paused. She had expected him to struggle, but he seemed confident. Slowly, she realized that his caution was not weakness. It was strength, different from her own, but just as important. Together, they navigated the canyon, moving across ledges and using roots and vines to climb safely. Nira found herself starting to respect his method, even admiring it. As they reached the other side, a glimmer of blue caught Nira's eye. The crystal. It shone with a soft light, embedded in the rocks above a small cliff. Nira's heart leaped. They had found it, but the moment was not without danger. The cliff was guarded by a pack of creatures, smaller than the one before but faster and more cunning. Nira tensed, ready to leap into action. Kalen placed a hand gently on her arm. Wait, he said calmly. Observe first, Nira hesitated. She was used to acting immediately, relying on speed and agility, but Kalen's voice, calm and steady, made her pause. She watched the creatures carefully. They moved in patterns, circling the crystal but leaving gaps between their patrols. Now, Kalen whispered, pointing to a safe path. Nira followed his guidance. Together they moved silently, avoiding the creatures and reaching the cliff with the crystal. She reached out and grabbed it, feeling its smooth surface. The energy inside it seemed to hum with life, a warmth that spread through her fingers. Kalen stepped forward and took another crystal from a nearby cluster. His movements were precise and careful, never reckless. Nira realized that without him she might have been caught or injured. As they turned to leave, one of the creatures noticed them and lunged. Nira reacted instantly, jumping and dodging while Kalen moved to block the creature's path. Together, they guided the creatures away and safely descended the cliff. At the bottom, Nira paused, breathing heavily. She looked at Kalen, a mix of awe and disbelief on her face. You really are something, human. I mocked you before, but today you have proven more than I expected. Kalen smiled, brushing dust from his uniform. Thank you, Nira. But I only succeeded because we worked together. Strength alone is not enough. Trust and teamwork are important too. Nira nodded slowly, feeling a warmth in her chest she had not felt before. The human warrior had shown her courage, intelligence, and patience. She had mocked him at first, but now she could not. He had earned her respect. As they made their way back to the village, Nira noticed the mountains behind them, the torn rift fading into the distance. She felt different, changed by the experience. Her pride was still there, but it was tempered by a new understanding. Humans were not weak. Some were strong in ways she had never imagined. When they returned to the village, the villagers cheered for their success. Nira held the crystal high, but her eyes found Kalen's. There was no boastful pride in his expression, only calm satisfaction. That evening, Nira returned to her home. Her mother, Elira, was waiting. Her eyes were soft but knowing. Do you see now? Elira asked gently. Strength is more than muscles and speed. Courage, wisdom, and patience matter just as much. Nira nodded, her mind still spinning with the day's events. Yes, Mother. I understand now. He's not like anyone I have met before. Elira smiled quietly. There is more to learn, Nira. Watch him carefully and you will see the truth. The human warrior is more than he seems. Nira lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling. The excitement of the day was still fresh in her mind. She thought about Kalen's calm strength, his careful movements, and the way he had guided her without command. She realized that this was only the beginning. The torn rift had tested her skills, but it had also tested her judgment. And for the first time, Nira wondered what other lessons the human warrior could teach her. The sun rose slowly over the mountains of Zithara, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Nira awoke with a mixture of excitement and unease. Yesterday's journey to the torn rift had changed her. The human warrior, Kalen, had proven himself brave, intelligent, and patient. She could no longer mock him, though part of her pride still wanted to challenge him. Nira dressed quickly and left her home, eager to see Kalen. She found him by the river that ran through the village, calmly studying the flow of water. He looked up and smiled as she approached. Good morning, Nira, he said. Are you ready for today's challenge? Nira nodded. Yes, but I want to know more about you. You are different from any human I have met. How did you become so strong and careful at the same time? Kalen considered her question. I have trained for many years, he said. But strength is not only in the body. It comes from understanding, observing, and choosing the right action at the right time. Nira frowned slightly, trying to process his words. She had relied on speed and agility her whole life, but she was beginning to understand that there were other kinds of strength. The elders gathered the villagers once again and announced the next stage of the test. The torn rift held not just the crystal they had collected, but also a deeper secret. A creature, larger and more intelligent than any they had faced, guarded the path to the heart of the rift. Only those with courage, wisdom, and teamwork could reach it. Nira felt her pulse quicken. This was more dangerous than before, but she was ready. She turned to Kalen, who nodded silently. Together they set off toward the rift, moving carefully through the rocky terrain. As they approached the edge of the deep chasm, Nira felt a shiver of anticipation. The walls of the rift rose high, jagged, and foreboding. The wind howled through the canyon, carrying the scent of earth and stone. Suddenly a shadow passed over them. Nira looked up and saw the giant creature descending from the cliffs above. Its wings were enormous and its eyes glowed with intelligence. It landed with a heavy thud, causing the ground to tremble beneath their feet. Nira's first instinct was to run, but Kalen placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Stay calm, he said. We can face this together. The creature roared, a sound that echoed through the canyon. Nira's heart pounded, but she forced herself to breathe steadily. She had trained for danger, and she would not let fear control her. Kalen observed the creature carefully. It watches for patterns, he said quietly. Move with purpose, but do not attack recklessly. We must understand its behavior before we act. Nira nodded. She had never approached a challenge like this with patience, but she trusted him. Slowly they moved closer, studying the creature's movements. Hours passed as they circled the area, observing the giant. Nira realized that Kalen's calmness and attention to detail made all the difference. Where she might have rushed or acted without thinking, he guided her steps and helped her see the creature's weaknesses. Finally, the opportunity came. The creature shifted its weight, exposing a narrow path that led deeper into the rift. Kalen pointed. Now, he whispered. Nira leaped across the gap with ease, followed by Kalen. The creature roared in frustration but did not follow. They had reached the next stage of the journey safely. As they continued, Nira noticed small habits in Kalen, gestures, phrases, and expressions that seemed oddly familiar. She paused, studying him carefully. There was something about him that reminded her of her mother. Do you remember your father? Alira had asked her many years ago. Nira had only faint memories, a human who had left before she could understand him fully. She had never imagined meeting him again. Nira's thoughts swirled. Could this human be connected to her family? She tried to shake the idea away, but it lingered in her mind. That evening, as they camped in a small cave to escape the cold wind, Nira's mother appeared quietly. Alira had followed them to the rift, watching over her daughter from a distance. Nira, her mother whispered, her eyes serious but gentle. Do you see him clearly now? Nira looked at her mother, puzzled. See him? What do you mean? Alira stepped closer. He is more than a warrior. He is connected to you, Nira. He is your father. Nira froze, her heart skipping a beat. She stared at Kalen, who was sitting across the cave, tending to their small fire. His expression was calm, but there was a warmth in his eyes that seemed familiar in a way she could not explain. Father, Nira whispered, her voice trembling. But how? I thought you were far away. I thought you had left us. Kalen looked up at her, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I left to protect your mother and you. I had to ensure that your world was safe before I could return. I never stopped thinking about you. Tears welled in Nira's eyes. She had spent years mocking humans for their supposed weakness, yet here was one who had shown patience, courage, and love. And now she understood that he was not just a warrior, but her father. Alira nodded gently. I did not tell you before because the time was not right, but now you must see the truth. He has come back to be part of your life, and you must decide how to respond. Nira's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, disbelief, anger, curiosity, and awe mixed together. She had never expected to find her father here, in the mountains of Zithara, facing the same dangers she did. Kalen stood and approached her. I know this is sudden, Nira. I will not demand your trust, but I hope you will allow me to be part of your life. I want to help you, guide you, and protect you. I want to be your father if you will let me. Nira swallowed hard. Her pride urged her to push him away, but her heart ached to accept him. She looked at his eyes, and in that moment she saw the same determination and warmth that had always been part of her family. Slowly, she nodded. I want to understand, she said. I want to know who you are and why you left. I want to see if we can be a family. Kalen smiled gently. Then we will take this journey together, Nira. Step by step we will face the challenges and learn from each other. That is what family does. That night Nira lay awake, staring at the glowing crystals they had collected. The light reflected in her eyes as she thought about the journey ahead. She realized that the torn rift had not only tested her skills, but also revealed truths about her life she had never imagined. The next morning, Nira felt a new sense of determination. She had learned that strength came in many forms, not just physical agility, but courage, wisdom, and patience. And now, she understood that her father, the human warrior, embodied all of these qualities. Together, they moved deeper into the rift. The path became narrower, and the air grew colder. Strange sounds echoed from the cliffs and shadows shifted in the corners of her vision. Nira felt fear, but it was tempered by the presence of her father. She no longer faced the unknown alone. As they approached a narrow bridge of stone over a deep chasm, Kalen paused. "This is a test of trust," he said. "We must rely on each other completely. Step carefully, and I will guide you." Nira nodded, her hands trembling slightly. She placed her foot on the first stone, feeling it shift under her weight. Kalen followed behind her, steadying the bridge with his strength when needed. They crossed slowly, step by step, their trust in each other growing with every movement. At the far side, they found a small alcove filled with glowing crystals. Nira's eyes widened in awe. The beauty of the place took her breath away. But more than the crystals, it was the feeling of connection with her father that filled her heart. Elira's voice echoed softly in her memory. "Do not judge too quickly. Strength comes from the heart." Nira realized that she had finally begun to understand. The human warrior was not just a visitor or an outsider. He was her father, a hero, and a teacher. And the lessons of the torn rift were far from over. As night fell and the stars appeared above the mountains, Nira sat beside Kalen, feeling a bond she had never known before. She was no longer mocking him. She was learning from him, growing with him, and beginning a journey that would change her life forever. The giant creature of the rift, once a threat, now seemed a challenge they could face together. Nira felt a strength inside her that came not just from her own skills, but from the presence of her father by her side. And in the quiet of the mountains, Nira whispered to herself, "I will not fail. Together we are strong." The morning sun rose over the mountains of Zithara, casting a soft glow across the jagged cliffs. Nira awoke in her small campsite, the memory of last night's revelation still fresh in her mind. Her father, Kalen, was already awake, examining a map spread across a flat stone. His calm presence made the harsh environment feel a little safer. "Good morning, Nira," Kalen said, looking up from the map. "Today will be a long journey, but I believe we can handle it together." Nira nodded, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness. She was beginning to understand her father, and at the same time, she wanted to prove herself. "I'm ready," she replied. "Lead the way." The path ahead was treacherous. Sharp rocks and narrow ledges made every step a careful decision. Nira had grown up navigating these cliffs, but Kalen's calm guidance reminded her that sometimes observation was just as important as speed. As they moved, they came across a group of smaller creatures, quick and cunning, blocking the path to the deeper part of the rift. Nira readied herself to leap and fight, but Kalen held up his hand. "Wait," he said. "We do not need to fight them directly. Watch their patterns and move carefully. There is always a safer way." Nira studied the creatures. She noticed how they shifted from rock to rock, their attention divided. Following Kalen's guidance, they slipped past without confrontation, their movements synchronized. Nira felt a surge of respect. His patience and calmness had allowed them to avoid danger entirely. Hours passed as they climbed higher, the wind growing colder and stronger. Clouds swirled around the peaks, hiding the path ahead. Nira's muscles ached, but her determination pushed her forward. Kalen walked beside her, steady and uncomplaining, offering a hand when the rocks became too steep. During a brief rest, Nira asked, "Father, why did you leave us?" "I have so many questions, and I want to understand." Kalen sat down beside her, his expression thoughtful. "I left because I had to protect your mother and you. My presence in your life at the time would have put you both in danger. I never stopped thinking about you, and I hoped one day I could return safely. I wanted to be part of your life when it was safe to do so." Nira listened quietly. The words stirred something deep inside her. She had spent years imagining who her father was, and now she was beginning to understand. He had not abandoned them out of weakness or selfishness, but out of love and courage. They continued their climb, and the landscape grew wilder. Massive boulders blocked the path, and deep crevices made every step a challenge. Nira realized that the torn rift was testing not just her physical skills, but her ability to trust and cooperate. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed from the cliffs above. A massive shadow moved against the rocks. Nira's heart raced as she saw another giant creature descending toward them. Its wings flapped powerfully, stirring the wind and throwing dust into the air. "Stay close," Kalen said calmly. "We can face this together." Nira nodded. She had learned from him that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Together they approached the creature, observing its movements carefully. Nira noticed how Kalen's eyes followed every detail, predicting its attacks and adjusting their path. With precise coordination, they navigated the area, moving around the creature and finding a hidden path that led deeper into the rift. Nira felt a sense of awe and admiration. Kalen's strength was not only in his body but in his mind and spirit. He had taught her that true power came from understanding, not just speed or agility. As they entered a narrow canyon, the wind dropped, and the air grew warmer. Strange glowing plants lined the walls, casting soft light across the rocks. Nira's eyes widened. This part of the rift was beautiful, almost magical, and the crystals embedded in the walls added to the wonder. Kalen picked up one of the smaller crystals and examined it carefully. "These crystals are important," he said. "They hold energy that can be used for healing or protection. We must be careful in handling them." Nira watched him work, fascinated by his knowledge. She had always been skilled at climbing and surviving, but Kalen's understanding of the world went beyond physical ability. He had wisdom and insight, and she was beginning to see that his strength complemented her own in ways she had never imagined. They continued deeper into the rift, moving slowly and carefully. Along the way, Kalen shared stories of his travels across distant worlds. He spoke of challenges he had faced, creatures he had encountered, and lessons he had learned. Nira listened intently, realizing that the human warrior had experienced much more than she could imagine. "Father," she said after a pause, "I never thought humans could be so strong, not just in battle but in thinking and planning. I used to mock humans, but now I see that they can be wise and courageous too." Kalen smiled gently. "Every species has its strengths, Nira. Humans are capable of great courage just as your people are capable of great skill. It is the combination of these strengths that can create something extraordinary." Nira nodded, feeling a deep sense of connection. She realized that her father had not only returned to her life, but had also become a teacher, guiding her in ways she had never experienced. She began to understand that her journey was not just about collecting crystals or facing creatures, but about learning and growing as a person. As the day wore on, they reached a wide plateau. The wind howled across the open space and jagged rocks cast long shadows. In the center of the plateau stood a massive crystal, glowing with a soft blue light. Nira felt her heart race. This was the heart of the rift, and it was guarded by creatures even more intelligent and cautious than the ones they had faced before. Kalen studied the area carefully. "We must approach slowly," he said. "The creatures here are not just strong, they are clever. We cannot rely on force alone. We must observe, plan, and act together." Nira nodded, feeling a surge of determination. Together they moved across the plateau, watching the creatures and timing their steps. Kalen's calm presence steadied her nerves, and she found herself trusting him completely. Finally, they reached the base of the crystal. Nira reached out and touched it, feeling a warm energy flow through her fingers. Kalen followed, and together they collected the energy crystals carefully, making sure not to disturb the creatures guarding them. As they worked, Nira realized that she was no longer mocking him. She was learning from him, respecting him, and beginning to feel a bond she had never expected. He was not just a human warrior. He was her father, her guide, and her partner in this journey. The sun began to set, casting the plateau in shades of orange and purple. Nira and Kalen sat together, watching the glowing crystals and the shifting shadows of the mountains. Nira felt a sense of peace she had never known before. "Father," she said softly, "thank you. Not just for today, but for coming back into my life. I want to learn from you and be part of your world too." Kalen smiled, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "And I will teach you, Nira. Step by step we will face the challenges ahead, and together we will grow stronger. You are brave, clever, and capable. I am proud to be your father." Nira felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that her journey was not just about facing danger, but about building trust, understanding, and love. She had gained a father, a teacher, and a companion all in one. As night fell, they built a small camp and rested under the stars. The wind whispered through the mountains, and the glowing crystals lit the area with a soft, magical glow. Nira felt a deep sense of connection to her father and to the world around her. She knew that the challenges of the torn rift were far from over, but she also knew that she would not face them alone. With her father by her side, she felt stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever before. And as she drifted to sleep, Nira whispered to herself, "Together, we are unstoppable." The morning air was crisp over the mountains of Zythra, carrying the scent of fresh earth and glowing plants from the rift. Nira awoke with determination. The journey through the torn rift had tested her in ways she had never imagined. She had learned patience, courage, and teamwork. More importantly, she had begun to understand her father, Kalen, and the strength he brought not only with his body but with his mind and heart. Kalen was already awake, examining the final part of the rift ahead. The path was narrow, surrounded by cliffs and jagged rocks. A low mist hung over the terrain, hiding the dangers that might lurk in the shadows. Kalen looked at Nira and smiled. "Are you ready for the final challenge?" he asked. Nira nodded. "I am. Together we can face anything." The two moved forward, their steps careful and synchronized. Each rock, ledge, and crevice was a test of balance and focus. Nira had grown faster and stronger, but Kalen's calm guidance kept her from taking unnecessary risks. She realized that her father's strength lay not just in action, but in thought, strategy, and patience. As they reached the heart of the rift, they saw it, a massive crystal embedded in a cliffside glowing with a bright blue light. Surrounding it were creatures unlike any they had faced before. They were large, with wings that shimmered in the mist and eyes that glowed with intelligence. They moved in patterns, guarding the crystal with vigilance and coordination. Nira's first instinct was to leap forward, using her speed and agility to snatch the crystal. But she remembered Kalen's lessons. She took a deep breath and studied the creature's patterns, observing their movements with patience. Kalen placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "We do this together," he said. "Trust me and I will guide you." Nira nodded. For the first time, she understood what he meant. Strength alone was not enough. Observation, timing, and trust were just as important. Slowly they advanced, moving in sync. Nira followed Kalen's lead, stepping carefully, waiting for the right moments to move. The creatures shifted and turned, but neither of them panicked. Step by step they approached the crystal. Finally they reached it. Nira's hands closed around the glowing stone, feeling a warm energy flow through her. Kalen took another, careful not to disturb the creatures. They had succeeded where others might have failed. As they turned to leave, a sudden roar echoed through the canyon. One of the larger creatures had broken from the group and charged toward them. Nira's heart raced, but Kalen's calm voice guided her. "Use the rocks for cover," he said. "Move quickly but carefully. We can outsmart it together." Nira leapt behind a large boulder, followed by Kalen. The creature lunged, but their careful movements allowed them to evade its attacks. Step by step, they led it toward a narrow crevice where it became trapped, unable to reach them. Nira felt a surge of relief and triumph. "You did well," Kalen said quietly, smiling at her. "You were brave and clever. I am proud of you." Nira felt warmth spread through her chest. "And you," she said softly. "You taught me everything I needed to know. I understand now that strength comes from more than speed or agility. It comes from courage, wisdom, and heart." The journey back to the village was quiet but filled with a sense of accomplishment. Nira and Kalen moved together, carrying the crystals and sharing small stories and laughter. She felt a bond growing stronger with every step, a bond of trust, respect, and family. When they reached the village, the villagers gathered in awe. They had watched the journey from a distance, anxious for the travelers' return. Nira held the largest crystal high, and the villagers cheered, but her eyes sought her father's face. Kalen smiled at the villagers, his presence calm and confident. He did not boast, but his courage and skill spoke louder than words. Nira realized that he had become more than a warrior. He was a symbol of unity between humans and her people. Elira approached her daughter, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You have grown, Nira, and so has he," she said, nodding at Kalen. "Together you are stronger than anything the rift could throw at you." Nira looked at her father, feeling a deep sense of pride and wonder. "I'm glad you are here," she said. "Not just as my father, but as someone who has shown me what true strength means." Kalen placed a hand on her shoulder. "And I am glad you allowed me to guide you. You are brave, clever, and capable. The rift tested you, but you passed not just because of skill, but because of your heart." The villagers, inspired by their courage, began to gather crystals themselves, learning to work alongside humans and alien travelers alike. Nira realized that the journey had done more than test her skills. It had inspired the entire village. The unity between species, once only a dream, was becoming a reality. That evening, the village held a small celebration. Fires burned brightly, and the air was filled with laughter and music. Nira stood beside Kaelin, feeling a sense of belonging she had never known before. She watched the villagers, young and old, practicing new skills and learning from each other. "Look at them," she said quietly to Kaelin. "They are learning from us, and we are learning from them. Maybe this is how we grow stronger together." Kaelin smiled. "Yes, Nira. Strength is not just in one person or one species. It is in unity, trust, and the courage to work together. You have learned this well." Nira felt a warm glow in her chest. She had faced the torn rift, learned from her father, and discovered a new way of seeing the world. She realized that her journey was not over, but the path ahead would be easier with him by her side. That night, as stars glittered above the mountains, Nira and Kaelin sat quietly by the fire. The glowing crystals lit the village, reflecting in their eyes. Nira felt a sense of peace knowing that her father had returned, not just as a warrior but as part of her life. "Father," she said softly, "thank you for coming back. I promise to be brave, clever, and to learn from you always." Kaelin nodded, his eyes filled with pride. "And I promise to guide you, protect you, and support you, Nira. Together we are stronger than anything we might face." The villagers watched them, inspired by the bond between human and alien. The story of Nira and Kaelin would be told for generations as a lesson of courage, wisdom, and unity. They had faced the torn rift, overcome impossible dangers, and proven that true strength comes from heart, mind, and teamwork. In the days that followed, Nira and Kaelin trained the villagers, teaching them to navigate the mountains, understand the creatures, and use the crystals wisely. The human warrior had not only become a father, but also a teacher and a hero, showing that humans and aliens could thrive together. Nira, once quick to mock, now guided others with patience and understanding. She had learned from Kaelin that true leadership came from listening, observing, and supporting those around her. She realized that strength was not only personal but shared, and that working together made everyone stronger. As the sun set over Zithera, Nira stood beside her father, looking out over the village and the mountains beyond. She felt pride, hope, and determination. The torn rift had tested them both, but it had also brought them together and shown the village the power of courage, unity, and heart. Kaelin placed a hand on her shoulder. "This is only the beginning, Nira. Many adventures await, but we will face them together as family." Nira smiled, her heart full. "Yes, together," she said. She knew that with her father by her side, she could face any challenge, and that their bond would make them stronger than any danger in the universe. And so the human warrior and his daughter, united in courage, wisdom, and love, became heroes of two worlds. Their story inspired their village and generations to come, showing that true strength comes from unity, heart, and the courage to face the unknown together. The mountains of Zithera glowed softly in the twilight, a symbol of hope, growth, and the power of family. Nira and Kaelin, standing side by side, looked at the horizon, ready for whatever challenges the future might bring, knowing that together they were unstoppable.